Good day, everyone. Hope everyone can hear me. Good day, everyone. Am I audible? Hello, good day. Okay.
Morning, sir.
All right. Thank you for confirming that I'm audible. Welcome to today's class, fourth quarter, second week. Today's topic is the power industry, and I'll be moderating this section. Like you know, my name is Dennis Williams. I want to welcome everyone to today's section. I would like to just indulge everyone today to just turn on their videos. We would like to see your face and know some of our mentees. I'm sure if I come across some of you on the way or on the road, I may not necessarily be able to identify you. So please, we would like to see your faces. We would like to know some of our mentees. So please join you to just turn on the video so that we can see our beautiful faces, our wonderful faces. Okay, before we go proper into this meeting, I would just like to invite our mentor, Mr. Alexander Akolo and Mr. Oke Ogene for joining early on. So thank you very much, sirs, for joining us just at the start of the meeting. So before we heading on into other things, let's take the following announcements. Okay. The JIIPCC mentorship and internship program registration is still on. Okay, today is going to be the last day for registration for this quarter. So if you still have people to register, want to be a part of the mentorship program, you can still register today. So the courses available are intellectual property, artificial intelligence and technology, the energy industry, fintech industry, health tech and law, privacy and protection, and entertainment business and law. So if you have anyone who is still interested in the program but is wondering whether the date is closed or not, you can just kindly tell them that the program is still ongoing and they are still permitted to register. After next week, we will no longer be taking any medicine since we've gone quite a while, since we've gone like almost midway into the program. So that's for that. Private mentorship section, we're still taking our private mentorship section, the one-on-one 30 minutes mentorship with your favorite JIIPCC mentor. We've already said that after the program, seeing that you meet quite a number of mentors, I'm sure there are maybe one or two mentors that you may admire just their demeanor and the way their own progress in the field, in a particular field that you are very, very much interested in. You can kindly click on that link, you can copy that link and then you can click and register, or you can just enter into my DM and ask me about it, and I'll direct you in that wise. What you will get from the private mentorship is you will get hacks, secrets, life lessons, and direction from your favorite mentors. With that being said, I would like us to just introduce our mentors in the next few minutes before we officially start the program. So our first mentor for today is Mr. Oke Ogene Ubehe. Sorry if I didn't pronounce that name very well. Mrs. Oke Ogene is a top-tier oil, gas, and energy professional whose experience spans the upstream, midstream, and downstream sector. He is driven by academics, markets, research, and work training experience, which is reflexive in this professional in his professional experience and education. He graduated from the University of Science and Technology, where he started his career in mechanical engineering. This followed with several master's degrees in projects management, engineering, and an MBA from schools in the United Kingdom and Rwanda. His oil and gas research career took flight when he joined Ceylon Subsea Limited as a subsea engineer and an working for upstream companies like Nigerian Petroleum Development Company and Total Energies. He then moved to a small oil and gas startup called MG Vargas Limited that was then a major player in the NAOC, AGIP, AP land and off-sea pipeline and crude storage infrastructure developments and operation in Bayelsa states. During this role, he led infrastructure projects and was the mastermind of the concept and construction of the world-class Mount Zion fabrication he had currently sited in Transwoji waterfront in Port Harcourt, River State. He later joined the crude evacuation arm of Midwestern Oil and Gas, which was then the most successful marginal field operators. The company called Umijini Pipelines Operations Startups. He joined to head the field operation and maintenance team in Delta states to run the robust strategies put on ground by the promoters of that specialized purpose vehicle, which is still making waves today. He is currently the head technician of Energy Links Infrastructure Limited, another novel crude evacuation, storage, and sales terminal infrastructure startup headquarters in Lagos, but operating in Bonny. He is heavily involved in energy research, oil and gas, and field operation optimization studies, and is consulting for many organizations in the energy sector. He has, in the past 2 years, ventured into renewable energy and electric vehicles as a part of his commitments to energy transition to greener, more sustainable energy mining and consumption. He has mentored several young engineers, energy enthusiasts, and lectures, management, and energy related programs virtually and in person for institutions and conferences globally. He is a registered engineer, an entrepreneur, and a fellow of several professional bodies, and energy broker engaged in project management, business optimization, and crude evacuation studies, especially for startups and growing companies. You can contact him through his mail, okene.ubehe@gmail.com. Welcome, Mr. That is our first mentor for today. Our second mentor for today is Mr. Alexandra Olatunde Akulu. Alexandra is a dedicated professional with demonstrated experience in regulatory compliance, relations, contracts administration and settlements, negotiation, research, and reportage in the Nigerian electricity supply industry. He has recently joined Nexia's Power, a subsidiary of Nexia's Capital Limited. As a senior energy consultant prior to this role, Alexander was a regulatory affair and government relation manager at Nigeria's largest electricity distribution company, Ibadan Electricity Distribution Company PLC. Alexander has deep knowledge on the plethora of regulations and directives in the NESI. He has worked as a technical assistant, Bureau of Trade and Investment, and a contract management analyst at the Embassy of Brazil and the Nigeria Bulk Electricity Trading PLC, respectively. Alexander is about to complete a Doctor of Philosophy, PhD degree in Energy Studies, Renewable Energy Finance from the University of Ibadan. He holds a Master's MSc, and he holds a MSc Engineering Studies degree from the University of Ibadan and a BSc Economics degree from the University of Jos. He has attended several energy conferences within and outside Nigeria. He is a member of the Nigerian Association of Energy Economics, NAEE, Global Associations of Risk Professionals, GARP, and Society of Petroleum Engineers, SPE, and the Energy Institute. Thank you, Mr. Alexandra, for joining us. Thank you, Mr. Alexandra, for joining us. We would like to welcome everyone to today's class. Our topic for today is the energy industry. And we would just like to go ahead and invite our first mentor for today, Mr. Alexandra Akolo, to come and do due justice to the topic we have for today, the power industry. Alexandra, sir, the stage is yours. You can come and have your section, sir. Hello, Mr. Alexander. So are you very audible, sir? Yes, sir. Are you with us, sir?
Hello.
Yes, sir. We can hear you now.
Okay.
So I was saying that thank you for having me. It's another privilege to be here today again. Hello, mentees. Hello, management of JIIPCC. It's good to be here again. So yeah, the power sector. I've gone through the slides of the mentees, and I say that they've done a good job. I think they've done a very good job. They were able to capture some highlights of the Nigerian power sector. And okay, so yeah, Nigerian power sector, everybody has access to electricity one way or the other. It might be underserved, it might be unserved. So everybody has an idea of what the power sector is all about, but we all know that the power sector is far from perfect. I mean, everybody still experiences outages in some form or the other. You do not have electricity whenever you need it. I can bet, like, out of the 21 participants in this program right now, about 21 people are going to have generators somewhat or inverters in their house, just to show that the Nigerian power sector is far from perfect. There are still lots of issues and the like. So the power sector is multifaceted. There are different angles. There's the regulatory, from the regulatory point of view, from the finance point of view, from the generation point of view, transmission, distribution. I'm sure we all know the value chain, even from a customer point of view. So the value chain we know is generation, transmission, and distribution, where generation companies ties to what the second mentor. I see that he has work experience in the oil and gas. So Mr. Okeogene, right? So you see that he has oil and gas experience. So they were the guys that were providing gas to the generation companies. Then there's transmission, which is transmission company of Nigeria. So there is no one generation company. There are several generation companies. Some of them use hydro, some of them use gas, some use solar, whatever you want to use. But currently in Nigeria, for the grid, on grid, they are mostly thermal, as gas, and as well as hydro. The hydro stations are in Niger State, Jeba, Kanji, Shiroro. There are some others as well, Kashimbila, Zungiru, and the likes. There's also Darinkoa, Mabon, which is about 40 megawatts. So there are several generation companies across the country. But there's one transmission company, which has two major components. There's the ISO, which also has a market operator side embedded inside it, and as well as a transmission service provider, TSP, who manages the grid infrastructure. Then we have the distribution. We have successor discos are Abuja, Benin. I'm sure we know them: Eko, Ikeja, Jos, Kaduna, Kano, Ibadan, and the likes. I was in Ibadan disco. There are several distribution companies who ensure that electricity is supplied to the last mile customers, such as me and you. And those customers are residential customers, industrial, commercial customers for those that have businesses, special customers, hospitals, and the likes, right? So that is about the value chain of the Nigerian power sector. And I saw that in your slides, you really talked about some of the challenges. Yes, the challenges are enormous. There are many challenges, and as such as there are many challenges, there are lots of opportunities as well. So there are a lot to talk about. So what I'll just do is I'll just wait. I'll stop here. When the presentation has been done by the mentees, then I can now jump in, and I'm sure it will be an interactive session. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir, for that brief introduction. We would like to take or call on rather our second mentor, Mr. Okeogene. Yes, sir, you can come and also give us a brief introduction into the subject matter of today, sir.
All right. Good morning, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir, we can. Good morning, sir.
Good morning to you. Nice to see your face. And good morning to all the mentees and everyone on the call. And good morning to my fellow mentor as well. Nice to meet you. I think he has done a good justice, a good introduction already on the power industry. That's what we're talking about today. We're all familiar with the power industry. It's the industry that is backing electricity production in Nigeria. We all have power in our house one way or the other, whether we generate or solar, whatever source we have. All the sources of energy, they happen to be under the power industry. And it's a very, very important sector because it powers the economy of every country you find yourself. One of the things that we have suffered as a nation is the fact that we always talk about power generation not being effective. And like the previous mentor said, whenever there's a challenge, there's also an opportunity. And I'm glad that the new dispensation, the new president that we have has seen that opportunity and has opened it up for everyone to be a part of it. I want to take a systematic approach just to talk about a few things following what the previous mentor has said. So what is power generation? Power generation is the process of generating electricity from different sources, primary sources, basically for utility of electric power industry. It is the stage for which energy is developed from one end to the other. There's also the storage part, and there's also the transmission part. So power generation is also very, very key, very important. I know he touched on that already, talking about the different sectors. Power, based on the power generation companies we have currently in the country now, we have the power generation part, which has to do with most of the companies he's talked about already. Ibadan Disco, Eco Disco, PHED, and all the likes, they are the power generators. So they fall into the critical part where they are more or less the first brokers, the first initiator of the energy and the power. So they play a key part, but I'll go further when we go ahead to talk about the different ways that electricity can be produced. I will talk about that. But beyond what they do, there's also the transmission part where the energy that is being produced, whatever it is, he talked about Shiroro, Kainji Dam, and whatnot, all these sources, all these places where energy is generated. The energy is transmitted to other locations where they are to be used to the customer, as he puts it. And then we have from generation to this transmission to and then to distribution. And distribution, you will find substations across the nations at different places that receive this energy from the transmission end, and then they're able to step it down to whichever way that we can use it. In some places, it's 33,000 kVA, in some other places, 11,000 kVA. And I see that there are also secondary customers that are between 450 and co. So this is what the energy transmission cycle is, from generation, like I mentioned, to transmission, and then we go to distribution. Also, to take that further again, one of the most important parts also we talk about in power generation are the power generation sources. I know he also touched on that already. There are several sources of which electricity can be generated. And in the wisdom of how these sources they've been classified as conventional and non-conventional energy sources. So by conventional, we mean that's the usual way that energy has been produced in the past, and that would be the older models with which we have used cuts across use of fossil fuel, use of energy reactors, use of hydro, use of coal, and many other sources we have used in the past. Also, steam has been used, petroleum products have been used, hydrogen has been used, and so many other ones. So there are also geothermal wells, and so biomass is also have been used in the past. So they fall under conventional, and in a new age, because of several other negative impacts of this conventional way, there's now become a need for us to go from the way things used to do before to the new age. Just like every other thing that we know, things are migrating from how they were previously to a new set or to a new way of doing things. So that's conventional will be the old way of doing it, and non-conventional will be the new way of doing it. So the new way of doing it, most of you would have heard about solar. And what is the driving force beyond this transmission is because of the negative impact of fossil fuel-based power generation. That would be a coal as the most primitive pan. Then you have petroleum, that is also the secondary one, and then we have a transition gas, which is and gas as it be in terms of CNG or LPG or whatever they are as sources for power generation. And the structure of these conventional fuels is because they have what they call carbon and hydrogen, stuck together. They are called hydrocarbons, right? So the hydrogen that is part of those units is what burns as fuel that we require in our engines or whatever cycles, gas turbines or whatever it is to generate energy. Yeah, but the carbon element that is there is the element that is not required, and that's what is being emitted by most of our engines. And those carbon has a negative effect on the environment from the part of also oil spill and all the spillages or emissions into the environment. Carbon has had a negative impact on the environment, and this is the reason why we have to migrate, because it has had very detrimental impact. I would not want to go into that because I see that some of the presentations you have sent, some of you, I'll talk about that. So again, at that point, we'll listen to what the impact is. But these are very negative impact that is impacting the entire world. One of them is the depletion of the ozone layer, which is very key, and that is impacting the entire world in terms of global warming, environmental changes that again the World Health Organization, every of us is impacting, and we have now set new guidelines to say that we want to do something about it. There's a transition plan to say by 2030 this is where we ought to be, by 2060 and on, and there are incentives and punishments also along the line for those that comply and those that do not. I think we'll go back past that when we're going again. But again, for the non-conventional one, I think it's a beautiful space they brought in. We have the wind energy, we have solar panels that are coming again, we have biomasses that are coming, so many other wind energy, so many other tidal energy also. And the reason why we call them unconventional or renewable is because they renew themselves. Let's take a typical example by wind. Nobody can stop the wind. You don't need to do anything for wind to come. It's a natural source of energy. So by the time the wind is coming from the direction and wind turbines are aligned with that direction, we get rotary motion, and that rotary motion is converted into energy. So there's nothing, we don't need to put any energy, we don't need to start any generation, we don't need to do it, make any impact for that to happen. So it's self-renewing and it's non-conventional. So that applies to several other ones also. For solar as well, we don't do anything, we just wake up in the morning, there's sunlight or there's daylight, and that's all you need for us to generate energy. And that applies to several other sources, biomass and all the other ones that are natural energy sources that are available in our environment. There's another one that is not very common, is the free radicals and free energy. These are things that have been researched already. How can energy be generated from the everyday thing we do? Some researchers have done some research. I'll provide some gadgets. Some of them are sleepers and all that. As you move, as you wear your sleepers and you press on it, you generate energy, and they have power sources like power banks that they use to extract that energy and keep, and you're able to use. So energy is a very important part of your life. We need. In fact, if you don't have energy, you will not be sitting where you are. Think about it. Energy is so important. That is for you, for the food you eat to generate energy. If you don't have energy, you cannot be alive. And so the environment will find ourselves. In critical hospitals and some other places, when the power and the energy goes up, people start struggling because the equipment go down and things don't work. So that is how energy, that's how important energy is. And we need to study it for us to make the best out of it. So I've talked about conventional energy. I've talked about non-conventional energy. There's so many other ones, and I believe as we go ahead, we'll continue to talk about them. Okay. Then lastly, I want to touch on the Electricity Act of 2023. I know most of us here are law students, and you need to understand the impact of the energy industry. One of the mentees, he's not on the call today, is also a lawyer that has done a lot also in the energy industry. I also enjoy my fellow mentor on the call is also in power generation. I'm in oil and gas. So we have a wide range of energy understanding of the span of the energy industry because it cuts across various places. Some of the questions we always see on this call is that, what does lawyer have to do with electricity and energy? They begin to ask those kind of funny questions, and I believe as we go down, we'll answer those questions. But again, this is where it comes in. The energy business is being powered by a legal system on the back end, vendors and contracting, a lot of things that happen on the back end, and it's only lawyers that do understand the laws of the land, the policies, and understanding and interpretation of these policies. So if, for an example, I work with Ibadan Electricity, and then we have a contractor coming to work for me, what are the conditions at which we are working? So whichever lawyer works in that place needs to understand the interrelationship between the vendor and also the producer and several other things that happen within that space. So that's where the energy lawyer comes in. Also, interpretation of the act. How does the act come? We have a new act now that talks about liberalization of the energy industry. Different people can now generate, can transmit, and also sell the energy. And this is huge space. That act comes as a form of a law, and that's where energy lawyers come, because they understand when we are not sure about things that are happening in the industry, where our agreements will happen, we need to go back to the energy lawyer. So most of you are very, very important. If it's this area you want to play in, I think it's very, very important. I've seen that a few citations from the slides that have been sent already, very, very beautiful citations. So I don't want to preempt that again. We should go back and look at the Electricity Act of 2023. It was signed on the 9th of June, 2023. And it's a very new law, means that there are gray areas that are there. So lawyers, this is the time you will jump in, go and understand this place. Then apply to most of all these companies that I want to be a part of you because I want to learn about this. I also want to learn how to interpret this. There's also space for consultancy also for those that don't understand this industry, and that's where it comes in. So JIIPCC has always provided this opportunity for you to come and learn, have the blueprint, have that initial understanding of what the powerhouse in the Nigerian economy is in terms of how you can interpret the laws, and then you're able to eke a living for yourself. So we should all thank JIIPCC for this opportunity all the time, where we have been introduced to new concepts that we can use to eke a living and become champions in the industry. We'll find ourselves. I will knock off at this point just so that we'll give the mentees the opportunity to do their presentations, and again we're here to support you. But again, the energy industry is a very, very vast and interesting industry. Myself, I've been in upstream, midstream, downstream, and now I'm going into the energy industry because I'm into renewables at the moment, electric vehicles, and all that. And our mentor on the call, I'll reach out to him also to go into the electricity side because I see there are huge opportunities also in those areas again. So please, those of you that are on this call, pay attention to this. And by the end of this JIIPCC program, you have value power with you for you to create a future for yourself and become great in this very important industry, not just in Nigeria, not just in Africa, but in the entire world. Energy rules the world. All right. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. And I look forward to the presentations. Thank you, Dennis.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you for that wonderful section. We'll just be, okay, before we do that, I just want to say our mentees, just share reactions. Thank our men for that. Those brief, very detailed sections that they had. The power and renewable. They talked about both power and renewable energy. So can we just see you guys react to everything they've said, or make some reactions to that? Thank you very much. Okay, we'll be going into the next section. That is the presentation part of it. So we'd like mentee to come up and take their presentation. Group one, if you're ready, you can come up and take your presentation.
Okay, sorry, I just wanted to add before they start their presentation. So I've seen some of the presentations, they've had up to 30 slides and all. When you're making your presentations, you're only picking key points, right? You're not reading the entire slide. So we expect that before now you would have practiced the slides, you have an understanding. As you look at the slide, you pick the key part of it so we don't spend too much time. The attention span of people on this kind of call is beyond 1 hour or so. People don't they don't quite grab a lot of things. So let's make it as quickly as possible. Run through, go to straight the meat of the point where you can drive your point to. I think and that will help. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for pointing that out. To our mentees, you have 10 minutes each for your presentation. You can go ahead. Group one, go ahead and presentation. Group one, are you?
Yes. They finish for egg. They just show the cracked egg. Like that's what possible. Right today.
Good morning, everybody. Good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. This is group one presentation, the renewable energy. That's our topic for today. Please, can you see my screen?
Yes, your screen is visible.
Okay. We'll be speaking on renewable energy. So renewable energy is energy from sources that are naturally replenishing but flow limited. Renewable sources are virtually inexhaustible in duration, but limited in amount of energy that is available per unit of time. Renewable sources include sunlight, wind, the movement of water, and geothermal heat. Although most renewable energy sources are sustainable, some are not. For example, some biomass sources are considered unsustainable at current rate of exploration. Renewable energy is often used for electricity generation, heat and cooling. Renewable energy projects are typically large scale, but they are also suited for rural and remote areas and developed areas. So you should also note that generating renewable energy creates far lower emissions than burning fossil fuels. Transitioning from fossil fuel, which currently accounts for the lion's share of emissions, to renewable energy is key to addressing the climate crisis. Renewables are, you should also note that renewables are now cheaper in most countries, create 3 times more jobs than fossil fuels. Moving on, while renewable energy is often thought of as a new technology, harnessing nature's power has long been used for heating, transportation, lighting, and more. Like for wind has powered boats to sail the sea and windmills to grind grains. The sun has provided warmth during the day and helped kindle fires to last into the evening. Now that we have innovative and less expensive ways to capture and retain wind and solar energy, renewables are becoming a more important power source, accounting for more than 12% of US energy generation. The expansion in renewables is also happening at scales large and small, from giant offshore wind farms to rooftops, solar panels on homes, which can sell power back to the grid. So I'll move on to the types of renewable energy sources. The first one is solar energy. As we know, the solar energy is generated from the sun. It is created by nuclear fusion that takes place in the sun. It is necessary for life on Earth and can be harvested for human uses, such as electricity, solar ventilation, water heating, and so on. So how can this solar panel work? You can see from the picture, we have a picture of a solar panel. So a solar panel are made out of photovoltaic cells that convert the sun's energy into electricity. Photovoltaic cells are placed between semiconducting layers like silicon. Each layers has unique electrical properties that activate when photons from sunlight strike them, creating an electric field. This is known as photoelectric effect, and it is what generates the current required to generate electricity. So this is just telling us how a solar panel work, and I believe most of us have seen how a solar panels look like. It's always kept at the rooftop, so the sun can easily reach it. So there are advantages and limitations of solar panels or solar energy. Solar energy is a renewable source. Sunlight is not reaching its supply limits even in a billion. You cannot reach there is no limited sunlight. Blah, blah, blah. It is clean. After solar technologies and equipment are created, they do not need for it to work. It complements other renewable sources of energy, such as hydroelectric energy and wind energy. So the second type of renewable source of energy is wind energy. Wind energy uses enormous wind turbines. Wind turbines located on land, that is onshore, or in sea or fresh water, that's offshore, to capture the kinetic energy of wind. You can see how wind turbine looks like from the picture. A wind turbine is a machine that converts kinetic energy from the wind into electricity. The blades of a wind turbine turns between 13 to 20 revolutions per minute, depending on their technology, at a constant or variable velocity, where the velocity of the rotor varies in relation to the velocity of the wind in order to reach a greater efficiency. So the types of wind turbines are horizontal axis wind turbine, vertical axis wind turbine. There are also advantage and disadvantage. The advantage includes the wind energy is a renewable and clean source of energy. It is a technology that ensures efficient use of landscape. Although wind farms may take up space, wind turbines and equipment do not span across large land mass. This makes it even possible for farming to take place, even as wind energy is being generated. Although setting up its equipment may be expensive at the outset, once operational, their operating expenses are relatively minimal. Their fuel, as wind is free, and the turbines do not require much maintenance. For disadvantage, that it is intermittent. That is, there's a periodic stoppage in supply. So because when there's a high level of wind, the output will be high. But once the level of wind is low, the output tends to be low. So the third one for types of renewable sources is hydroelectric power. The hydroelectric power, as the name implies, is the energy is gotten from water. So hydropower harnesses the energy of water moving from higher to lower elevations. It can be generated from reservoir dams and rivers. It is the oldest and currently the largest source of renewable energy in the electricity sector. Hydroelectric dams and turbines. An hydroelectric turbine is a device capable of transforming the kinetic energy of water into mechanical energy. So the first one is bioenergy. Bioenergy is made up from a range of organic resources known as biomass, such as wood, charcoal, dung, and other manures for heat and power generation, and agricultural crop for liquid biofuels. Modern biomass systems include specific crops or trees, agricultural and forestry waste, and a variety of organic waste sources. So the fifth one is the geothermal energy. Geothermal energy is an energy derived from the heat of the earth. So moving on, we have the benefit of renewable energy. Renewable energy is important as it is the potential to provide a ready supply of power without using natural resources. There is also a lower risk of environmental problems like fuel spills and minimal issues with emissions, while also reducing the need for imported fuels. With reliable supplies and fuel diversification, renewable energy could meet our power needs for years to come. So in the light of the benefits, consider three directions, which is economic benefits, environmental benefits, and security benefits. Under the economic benefits, we'll see that it is stable, predictable, and low-cost electricity. Perhaps the most significant, we also see that it renews the economy, and there's also job creation. That's part of the benefits, as part of the economic benefits. So one of the most notable economic benefit of renewable energy projects is job creation. The development, the construction and maintenance of renewable energy infrastructure requires a skilled workforce, generating employment opportunities across various sectors, where you have engineers, technicians, and the likes. We have regional development and community benefits. Renewable energy products can play a crucial role in regional development. They create opportunities for local business and suppliers, stimulate economic growth, revitalize rural areas. And moreover, communities hosting renewable energy projects often benefit from increased tax revenues, infrastructure improvements, and community development initiatives funded by project developers. Under the environmental benefits of renewable energy, you see that clean energy is good for is good for the environment because it does not produce the harmful emissions that leads to climate change. Climate change, including extreme weather and sea level rise, causes drought, wildfire, flooding, poverty and displacement, food insecurity, health risk, and species loss. Clean energy technologies improve human health by reducing air pollution and water and soil contamination. A clean energy economy will lower rates of asthma, heart conditions, and other health issues related to climate change across the nation. It will also support our ecosystem, geographic areas made up of plants, animals, and other organisms that interact with each other and the physical environments and help sustain life in our environment. So we also have the security benefits. That security benefits, we see diversifying the generation mix. Renewable energy can support energy security by adding diversity to an overall electricity generation portfolio. Diversity gives access to constant supply of energy. So you see coupling with storage. A renewable based energy system, utility scale or distributed can. Sorry, let's move on to the challenges and barriers of renewable energy. As many challenges and barriers of renewable energy. First one is intermittency and storage. when you talk of intermittency and storage, the intermittency implies that there will be a periodic stoppage in the supply of energy. So renewable energy sources are subject to fluctuation due to weather condition or time of the day. The intermittency poses challenge to grid stability and necessitates effective energy storage solution to store excess energy during peak production during low generation period. Challenges and barriers related to intermittency of renewable energy sources, such as wind and solar, and the need for effective energy storage solution are significant factors in the adoption and integration of renewable energy in our energy system. So under intermittency, you see weather dependent. That there are renewable energy sources like wind and solar power. They are weather dependent and variables. They generate electricity when the wind blows and the sun shines, and their output can fluctuate significantly due to the weather conditions. So there'll always be inconsistent supply because the intermittency can lead to inconsistent energy supply, making it challenging to match renewable energy generation with electricity demand, especially in the absence of an energy storage solution. So grid integration, integrating intermittent renewables into the electricity grid requires grid management and infrastructure upgrades to balance supply and demand effectively. This can be technically complex and costly. So moving on, the second challenge and barrier is cost and affordability. The renewable energy technologies they can be less affordable. They can be costly. So moving on, the next one is policy and regulatory challenges. Policy and regulatory challenges are critical aspects of the renewable energy landscape. While the renewable energy sector has seen significant growth, several hurdles must be overcome to fully harness its potential. So these policy and regulatory challenges are like government incentive and subsidies, where government incentives and subsidies for renewable energy can be inconsistent and subject to change. This uncertainty can undermine investor confidence. So lack of grid flexibility. The grid's adaptability to accommodate renewable energy is a complex process requiring regulatory adjustment to ensure a more flexible, responsive system. Land use and environmental concerns. Regulatory requirements associated with land use, wildlife protection, and environmental conservation can impose additional hurdles for renewable energy. The next one is technological challenges. The technological challenges play a significant role in the development and adoption of renewable energy.
Sorry for interrupting, Gina. Please, can you just quickly try and see if you can round up the presentation so that Group 2 can also come up with and make their presentation.
Yes, okay. So there are successful renewable energy initiatives. We have a renewable energy master plan. This plan sought to increase supply of electricity from. There's another successful renewable energy initiative, which is the German Federal Ministry for Economic Cooperation and Development. Then moving on, we have regions and countries leading in renewable energy. According to Climate Council, some of the countries leading in renewable energy are Iceland, Sweden, Norway, United Kingdom, China, Uruguay, and Paraguay, and the likes. So in conclusion, Nigeria could benefit from the targeted intervention that would reduce the local air pollution and help the country to tackle greenhouse gas emissions. Nigeria is rich in conventional energy resources, which include oil, national gas, lignite, and coal. It is also well endowed with renewable energy sources such as wood, solar, hydropower, and wind. The rural areas, which are generally inaccessible due to the absence of good road networks, have little access to conventional energy, such as electricity and petroleum products. Petroleum products such as kerosene, gasoline are purchased in rural areas at prices 150% in excess of their official pump prices. The daily needs of the rural populace for heat energy are therefore met almost entirely from fuel wood. The sale of fuel wood and charcoal is mostly uncontrolled in the unorganized private sector. The sale of kerosene, electricity, and cooking gas is essentially influenced and controlled by the federal government or its agencies. The Nigerian National Petroleum Corporation, that's NNPC, in the case of kerosene and cooking gas, and the PHCN in the case of electricity. The policy of the federal government had been to subsidize the pricing of locally consumed petroleum products, including electricity. So in a bid to make the petroleum downstream sector more efficient, and in an attempt to stem petroleum product consumption as a policy focus, the government has reduced and removed subsidies on various energy resources in Nigeria. The various policy options have always engendered prices increase. That's the end of our presentation. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you, Gina, for the presentation. Well done for that wonderful presentation. Your group members, I would like to see your group members react to that. You can stop sharing your screen right now so that we can have group two's presentation. Group two, if you're ready, you can go ahead and make your presentation.
Hello, Dennis. Dennis,
Yes,
can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
I think a better way would be for the reactions to be immediately after each presentation. That way, they are still fresh, and I think it will be better that way. I don't know if the second mentor feels the same way, because if we have to do the three of them at the same time before we start to have comments, we can forget some very important comments. So it's important the comments are done immediately, so that those the groups are going to take the feedbacks, and some of these feedbacks are very, very important.
Oh, all right. Okay, so group two, before you make your presentation, we would just like to take Mr. Alexander's correction and then just have comments from our mentor based on the presentation made by the group one. So please, you can just stop sharing your screen so that our mentors can give their input on the work done by group one. Yes, Mr. Alexander,
Yeah, okay.
you can go ahead.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Dennis. So thank you, Gina, for that presentation. It was interesting. I enjoyed it to a certain extent, though I think your group did not do a good job in the sense that the slides were too wordy. I know you are still in the university and you might not know this, but you can't have wordy slides. I'm just telling you this so that you begin to, you know this as you go along your academic and professional career. Then you are just reading the slides. You're not talking off the top of your head. You're basically reading word for word, and that is not good enough. Then, I just want to draw your attention. Good, fantastic research that has been done. I'll draw your attention to some things. You mentioned that the renewable energy initiatives, the REMP, Renewable Energy Master Plan, is not an initiative, it's a plan. The plan was for how generation is going to be added to the nation, to the access of the country to renewable energy, and also generation by 2040, 100% by 2040. You understand? 75% by 2020. So that is not an initiative. Even the GIZ, the second one that I put there, is not an initiative. They fund renewable energy. They don't even fund. They provide technical assistance for renewable energy projects. So you need to be very clear. When you say renewable energy initiatives, that's when you cannot talk about mini grids, talk about solar home systems. You should have looked at what the Rural Education Agency, REA, have done in Nigeria in renewable energy. You didn't even talk about some of the projects that have been carried out, right? I also see that your conclusion is very, very watery. It is not tied to only the first paragraph tied to your presentation. The other things you said were just they had no bearing to your presentation at all. PMS, subsidy. I mean, you should focus on the most important things. All those other, it's not presentation is not about the slides, number of slides and the number of words, or just packing some kind of things inside. No, you should hit the nail on the head, and you should be very straightforward. So, yeah, these are just my comments. I would have expected you to give us an idea of the stakeholders. Do you talk about renewable energy, the cons and pros? Fantastic, right? But even in Nigeria, who are the stakeholders in renewable energy? We didn't talk about that. And that would have been very, very important to the listeners, people that are listening. They will know the people the agencies rather that have a lot to do or say and are charged with the mandate to propagate and promote renewable energy in the country. So I'll just stop here. I don't know if my co-mentor has comments, but I just wanted to say this so that the group is not just Gina. I'm not just talking to Gina now, I'm talking to the whole of Group 1. So there's a way to make presentations. You understand? I'm sure you're not just hearing it for the first time. Or if you're hearing it for the first time, it's good to just know. So that when you are doing other presentations in school, or when you also get a job, or you start one internship and they ask you to do a PPT, don't just go and pack words and put inside and say you've made a PowerPoint presentation. No, it's a turn off. I'll stop here. So, yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much, sir, for that comment, sir. We would like to have Mr. Okeogene also make his comments on Group 1's presentation.
All right, thank you. Thank you once more. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir, we can.
Okay, excellent. Thank you, presenter, for the renewable energy presentation. I think you did well to walk us through your group's idea, what you guys have put together. I also want to thank my co-mentor. He's done a very excellent job in the feedbacks he's provided, and I think that is very important. One of the things that we did not see in our days growing up, I didn't know anything about PowerPoint slide when I was in university, right? I graduated, when I was in my master's degree that I became a bit more exposed to this. So I think he has provided a very, very important feedback that we need to go back with, not just those in this group, but again, entirely in our careers as we grow up. PowerPoint has become so important in sharing ideas. And I think in the student life cycle, this is something that if you know how to do very well, it will project you as a professional at an early age. One of the things that JIIPCC has also done is that when you're starting this mentorship and internship program, our first pre-session, we take our time to walk the mentees through what is expected, and we try to explain to you what the PowerPoint presentation is, how to develop one that is a catching presentation. So I think you might need to go back to YouTube to go and watch how to make a renowned or a remarkable presentation. I think that's very, very important. Like my co-mentor said, it's not about the number of slides. The idea of PowerPoint presentation is not to put too many words on it. It's just you speak to the slide. So you put a few things that will allow you remember the core message that you want to pass. So slides, usually, if you look at the intent of it, it carries more of pictures and few wording so that it can remind you on what you do. Any professional that is able to capture this at an early age does very well, because every time you're given an opportunity to open your mouth to speak to something, you always wow the crowd and the people that are there. So that is something we need to pay attention to. Again, I'll draw it to the attention of JIIPCC once more. We need to pay a bit more attention to this, to teach. This is one of the life hack skills that we are going to give to the mentees, because they will take it everywhere they go. If I want to employ somebody, right, in addition to the resume that is, I say, make a slide on yourself and your achievement. I want to see how you can talk through that, and that is one of the ways that students can transition from student life into being a professional. So that is just by the way, but these are very important things that the entire groups need to take cognizance of. Then narrowing down to renewable energy, that I think in terms of the research that was put into this presentation, I would say kudos to the team. I think they've taken a lot of time to pick a lot of the information that they have and pass it here. But like my co-mentor has said, it's relevant information that you're supposed to put here, right? It's not about putting the entire thing that is here. You have to put relevant information. The entire 43 slides is not. The entire 43 slides is not necessary, actually, if you ask me, right? You are supposed to zoom in and narrow into what is critical at this point. And we're talking about the renewable energy. I think that is your own subtopic in terms of the energy. You narrow down on that. And we are legal. Most of us are legal, are students from the legal profession. So we should gear towards not just writing about it, but also the legislation, the policies that are behind this. I know there are new policies already promoting renewable. We'll talk about those policies already, how the impact on them and how they cut across. And then we'll go from the local scene to the international scene, how those impact on us. And my co-mentor has touched on this already, but these are very important matters. While I commend them because they're very young in this stage, you need to grow in what you are doing. And sometimes when you want to have a good first impression, you might not have the second opportunity to do that. When you have the good opportunity, you nail that opportunity you have. I hope the mentees are listening to it. Let me see emojis. Let me be sure I'm not just wasting my energy and talking. Let me see emojis that people say, I hear you, I hear you, I hear you, I'm following you, are saying something that is meaningful. Let me see that the students are picking something from what we say, because what we provide here already, these are nuggets that make you stand out. And I believe that's why JIIPCC has provided this program, because we don't want you to be the normal student out there. We want to impact on you knowledge, from industry experts, so that when you go out there, you are able to excel. One of the things I also noticed is that Nigeria is coming up on the global radar in the way academics and performance in terms of innovation is coming up. So we have to teach you people all this. So when you go out there, they say, okay, write an article as a second year student or third year student. If somebody in England writes, somebody in Ghana writes, and somebody in Nigeria writes, we should see that impact, that Nigeria has a good education system, because apart from the formal education pathway, we provide this kind of, JIIPCC provides this kind of opportunity for you to pick very key nuggets. I repeat, very key nuggets that can make you stand out in your career path. I don't expect those of you on this call that when you go back to class, when they talk about energy, you'll not be sounding like your classmates. No, you've heard from the professionals. You know the part of the industry that is important, and you have narrowed down on it. So I think it's very important. I don't really want to go too much again, drill down on this. My co-mentor has done such a good job, because this is his forte in terms of the energy. But I think that some of the information that I hear, they are very unnecessary. They have missed very, very key part of what they did. And I believe that going forward, they're going to do. But kudos to the entire team. Kudos to the entire team. I will look forward to better presentations as we go ahead. Well done.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you for that comment. I'm sure they will do well to make necessary adjustments where needed. So we'd like to call on the group two to also come up and do their presentation. At least if we can keep to time, your time is 10 minutes for the presentation.
Thank you very much. Can you hear me, please?
Yes, we can hear you.
All right. The topic for group 2 is climate change. And from what I have noted from the presentations and what we've been taught last week and this week, I realized that there's no way we talk about the power industry from generation of energy to the transmission and distribution. There's no way we'll talk about it that will not touch climate change. So yeah, we have that climate change touches everything. It reshapes weather system and coastlines, altering where crops can be grown and which disease thrives. Which temperature affects geopolitics, migration, ecosystem, and the economy. Climate can be classified into various types or zones, such as the tropical, arid, temperate, and I think polar climate, based on factors like temperature and precipitation. These classifications help us to understand different regions and how the changes occur in these regions. Climate change refers to the long-term alteration of Earth's climate. And as mentioned, it touches everything. It reshapes weather system and coastlines. And some of the causes of climate change includes deforestation, industrial emissions, gases from vehicles. These are mostly human activities. These activities release greenhouse gases into the atmosphere, which trap it and lead to global warming, resulting in various environmental and societal changes and impacts. The effects and consequences of global warming includes rising temperatures and heat waves, melting glaciers, and rising sea levels. This occurs when the heat is so much that it melts the sea level and the ice sheet and all of that. Yeah. We also have extreme weather events, disruption of ecosystem and biodiversity. Moving on, we have the carbon dioxide and ocean acidification. The relationship between climate change, carbon dioxide, and ocean acidification is that human activities such as burning of fossil fuels release large amounts of CO2 into the atmosphere. This excess amount of CO2 is absorbed by the oceans, leading to ocean acidification. This leads to changes that have detrimental effects on marine life and ecosystem. For proper understanding, ocean acidification occurs where there is excess CO2 in the atmosphere, and this excess carbon dioxide is absorbed by the oceans. The process decreases the pH levels of the Earth's ocean, thereby making it more acidic. Yeah. Moving on, we also have the effect of ocean acidification. As the ocean becomes more acidic, its ability to absorb additional carbon dioxide diminishes. Ocean acidification will harm various organisms. Well, a substantial portion of the world's coral reef has already been damaged or destroyed. Coral reefs are crucial habitats for a wide range of marine species, providing shelter and breeding grounds for fishes and other organisms. Coral reefs are of global and significant economical importance. However, due to climate change and global warming, a substantial portion of these coral reefs have been destroyed. The decline in coral reefs are highly sensitive and concerning because they provide habitat. And once they diminishes and destroy this habitat these species that are supposed to provide habitats for, they are left with nothing. Yeah, we have preventive measures. Preventive measures of climate change includes transition to renewable energy, which Group 1 has talked about in their presentation. We have energy efficiency, electrification, carbon pricing, let's just go on. Reforestation and afforestation. Then we also have sustainable agriculture. Personally, I believe that if diversification is included in our what generates economy for us in Nigeria, if we are able to diversify and also like go into clean and sustainable agriculture, the issues we have with climate change might be mitigated to an extent. We also have industrial emission and reduction, renewable heating and cooling, then waste management. Improvement on the management of waste, especially in a country like ours, will help us reduce methane emissions from landfills. Then we have regulation guiding climate change. Here we have the American Innovation and Manufacturing AIM Act of 2020. We also have the European Climate Law. We have the National Climate Change Policy. We have regulations EU 2021, establishing the framework for achieving climate neutrality, European Climate Law. And we also have the Climate Change Act of 2021. We have a lot of laws guiding and regulating and prevent that. They are there to mitigate these climate changes and its effects. But one thing I have noticed is that there are a lot of laws in this Nigeria, but the implementation and execution of these laws are not in place. So personally, I would also like to add that since these laws are in place, we also need to execute these laws that are guiding us. Then we have recommendations. The use of renewable energy should be encouraged. Utility companies should tilt towards sources of generating electricity. We also have forest deforestation should be discouraged. Reforestation and afforestation, we help to combat deforestation. We help to combat climate change because it will help in capturing and storing carbon dioxide from the atmosphere to prevent its release and reduce its impact on climate. So from here, I believe that we should be able to also encourage reforestation and afforestation in our society and environment. And also we have our references here, and that will be all from Group 2. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Temi, for that wonderful presentation. Okay, we would like, firstly, before we call on our mentors to give their comments on their presentation, can we see emojis from the group members of Group 2? We're just saying job well done to Temilola for that wonderful presentation. Why they do that, okay, we'd like to call on our mentors. We'd like to first call on Mr. Alexander to come and give his comments on the subject matter that he talked about.
Okay, well done, Tommy, for that presentation and the entire Group 2. The presentation was well delivered, and it was obvious that you guys did a good research, and besides that as well, you guys also, Tommy, you took some time to understand the subject matter, climate change. I know maybe Group 1 might think the mentors are harsh, but it's actually for your own good. Throughout this program, most JIIPCC mentees, every time they will say, oh, anytime they see I'm on a presentation, it actually makes them sit up. You see that the next presentation you're going to deliver, you actually do a better job. So, but back to this PPT, it was well delivered, it was good. Tommy, good job. It was not wordy. There were a lot of pictures, and I see that I did some research also on the policies. And I was very impressed to see the Climate Change Act of 2021, which it's new, which established the NCCC, Nigerian Climate Change Council. So, and also established the Climate Change Fund for the country, and other standards as well. So if you look at the the Climate Change Act of 2021 is not so much, just about 40 pages, and it's very interesting. And if you're interested in climate change, it's something you should actually look at. So, but on your presentation, I see. Well done. But I just had some questions in my head on your recommendations. Your recommendations are really generic. And yeah, the first one you said distribution companies should tilt towards. Can you just put up your slide again? Can you put it up? Yes, your recommendation. The first one. Yeah, the recommendations. Yes, I can see the use of renewable energy should be encouraged. Fantastic. Utility companies should tilt towards sources for generating electricity. So now what do you mean here? Should tilt utility companies, distribution companies should tilt towards sources. What kind of sources are you talking about? And I mean, what sources are you talking about? Should they tilt towards renewable sources? Or what do you mean? Should you tilt towards hydro or gas? Or what do you mean here? So, and don't also forget that in terms of the licensing, distribution companies only have distribution licenses. Generation companies have generation licenses. So every company has its own type of license. So a distribution company cannot actually generate, right? So they can only procure energy from a generation company that probably has a renewable energy license. So your recommendations were, I just think they were generic. The fourth one, forest deforestation should be disencouraged. How? How should it be disencouraged? If I go to your village now, I don't know where you're from. Maybe you're from Ekiti, I'm just guessing. If I go to your village, wherever it is, and I go and tell those people, or in the north, let me even use the north. I go to Malum Fasha and tell them to stop cutting down the trees. Am I going to be the one to give them LPG? What alternatives am I recommending to them? So remember that forest deforestation are usually done by loggers and women and children for cooking. So what alternatives are you providing? Then you remember, okay, yeah, you wouldn't have known. There are other contributions to or contributors to climate change or the emission of greenhouse gases into the atmosphere. We have transportation. The transport sector contributes as a heavy polluter. So that's why we should now start talking about switching or conversion, people to move from conventional hydrocarbon fuels, which is diesel and PMS, to other alternative vehicular fuels like compressed natural gas vehicles, LPG, CNG, electric vehicles, right? So those are other recommendations that for the reduction of greenhouse emissions. Then also there's also carbon credit, and even there are others. There are other solutions. For one of the questions I saw, there are new technologies to capture this carbon or these greenhouse gases, and they can also be traded with other companies, other countries that are heavy polluters. So overall, good presentation. But I think your recommendations, yeah, you can do. Yeah, I'll just advise, even though you've done the presentation now, still go back. That's group 2. Still go back and do a more in-depth research and come up with some better recommendations. Thank you. I'll stop here. Thank you.
Right. Thank you very much. Thank you for the presenter of Group 2. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Hello, can you hear me?
You're audible, sir.
Okay, excellent. So I think this was a better presentation. Thank you very much for the job done. I think the renewable sector is a very, very dynamic and it's a bit new also, but this group has taken time to extract very credible information on what is relevant. I think their slides are just 13. And they were able to also provide a reference at the end, referencing some of the job they have done. So I would say this is a bit better. There's still room for improvement. Like my co-mentor said, if the teams can, after this call, go back and do some justice based on the feedback, because that's what learning is all about. They said feedback is a gift, right? You do something, somebody observes the way you do, someone with more experience or someone that knows a bit more and is able to call your body language and say, okay, this is where I think you've not done well. You need to take that information and then internalize that information and see what you can do with it. So I think today gives us the opportunity to go back and have a look at this and make adjustments. I don't want to go into the nitty-gritty of all this because my co-mentor is his forte already. But just a few things I want to talk about. We talked about deforestation as part of the factors or agents for negative climate change, and I agree with you. We need to have initiatives that will promote, that will help people understand this or what's the word I'll call it now, undoing of ourselves. By deforestation, we are undoing ourselves because the trees that are supposed to impact and control climate change and afforestation, we are the ones impacting on them. I also want to touch on emissions. Emissions are a very important part. Greenhouse gases, then we call them mobility emissions. Those that are from cars, are from train stations, from aeroplanes, and all their mobility sources of emissions. And they are a very key contributor to the emissions that we face globally. And that's why we see we are going into electric vehicles. I'm also big on electric vehicles. In fact, we are bringing some vehicles into the country and that will help to deal with these issues, CNG, electric vehicle, hybrid vehicles again. And the reason for this is still the same thing we're talking about again. How can we decarbonize our logistics, our vehicles? How can we decarbonize? How can we take carbon away from these sources of energy? And that's what the entire alternative energy, that's what it's all about. How do we take carbon? Because carbon is the killer, right? Carbon is the part that when you burn your fuels, our fossil fuel, that's what is emitted in the environment. It's trapped in the ozone layer. It impacts our breathing system. It affects visibility and a lot of all that. So the actual reason why we're talking about climate change and all is the carbon content. So there's also a principle called carbon capture where different engineering processes, chemical processes, and we try to capture the carbon that is the detrimental part of our environment or the atmosphere as it's called. We capture them and then we go to aquifers, oil and gas wells and all that, and we pump them all that into them. I don't want to bore you with all those stories, but in terms of the presentation, I think this is well structured, very few words, good pictures. Again, they drive the picture, they drive the message home. Very insightful pictures, also beautiful colors also that have been represented here. So I think this again goes a long way. And one of the things I also want to advise JIIPCC, maybe we'll give a number of slides to any of the mentee groups that are coming again. Maybe we want to tell them there's 10 slides or 15 slides or 20 slides. So we can curtail the information they want to put. So it allows us to spend less time here, but also doing justice to the topic that was talked about here. So I think this is quite commendable. Carbon footprint was also talked about here. Very, very beautiful concept, because you can't talk about climate change without talking about carbon footprint. I hear about carbon credit also. It's also another initiative to promote the entire emission space and climate change. I think this is a better presentation. I want to commend the team. I also want to commend the first team as well. The learning process, that's why we are here. Let's take this feedback and go back again. I've seen places where people that have not done very well take very good feedback and they rise very quickly, even more than those that have done well. So that opportunity is here. And the essence of we being here, the opportunity JIIPCC has given to us is the opportunity for learning, for fast-tracking our careers. And I think the feedback we provided on this platform will allow that to be done. Thank you very, very much for that. And that's my feedback. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. I'm sorry I had to, my network had a little glitch, so I had to fix it. So we'll be going to the question and answer section before rounding up with the class. So we want to give an opportunity to our mentees to ask their questions based on what was discussed, based on the research they made. If you have any questions you would like to ask or throw to our mentors, this is the opportunity for you to do that now. So we'd like to see live questions first, and then you can also send your questions to the chat box, and I will do well to read them also. So can we have questions? Are there questions? Are there questions from our mentees?
Yes, sir, there's a question, please. Can I ask a question?
Yeah, you can go ahead.
All right, thank you so much for the opportunity. Good day, our mentors. My name is Muhammad Musa. So I'm a member of Group 2. So I want to ask a question regarding to the research we did regarding to the presentation when we were trying to explain about the causes of climate change. Then we get to instead of discussing about the melting of ice caps and glaciers.
No.
Although I've gone through the research, the compilation of what we did, but I could not actually comprehend deeper on what this melting of ice caps and glaciers is talking about to affect the climate change. So I don't know if probably you can just explain more further on this, sir, so I can have a clear understanding about it. Thank you, sir.
Mohammed, so thank you for that question. So climate change, right? What this just means is that the environment, the weather, the climate is not as it used to be. There are different causes, most of which are man-made, right? Man factored. What I mean is that human beings are the one that causes it. Your vehicle now emits gases, right? There are cement factories. We have nuclear power plants. We have coal power plants. All these plants emit their heavy polluters into the environment, right? So what this does is that with the massive emission or pollution of the environment, naturally very, very cold areas. There are areas that are very cold. I don't know where you are based, but you will know that right now we are hearing a lot about flooding. We are hearing a lot about drought. There is dryness. There was a time across Africa, locusts were ravaging different sub-Saharan African countries and destroying their crops. So there are places that are naturally very, very, very cold, like the Antarcticas. So what this means is that because the climate is getting hotter, all these areas are now beginning to melt. I don't know if you understand me. If you notice, even the environment, even in Nigeria right now, sometimes we hear that the sun is even hotter than it used to be. So what this means is that before now, there used to be there are protective coverings in the atmosphere, protecting the ozone layer. But now, those protections are not there as they used to be. Now, the sun is directly on our skins, unlike before when there was some sort of protection, right? So now the atmosphere is hotter. And it's just like when you put an ice block in a very hot environment, it's going to melt. So that is what the melting of the glaciers means. I hope I'll be able to provide some clarification.
Yes, sir, thank you so much. It's well understood now.
You're welcome.
All right, thank you, Mr. Alexander, for that contribution.
Let me just add to that. To Mohammed's question. So if you are conversant with geography, right, there's supposed to be a water-land balance. As another part of your question, there's supposed to be a water land balance. There's supposed to be an atmospheric balance that we have. So if the water content in the world is, let's assume 5 liters, right? If there's rainfall and it becomes more than 5 liters, the sun is going to shine, going to evaporate some of the water back again to the sky so that the clouds can hold them. So there's a balance between the water in the sky, water in the land, and all that. But again, what this greenhouse effect has done to the ozone layer is that it has broken the ozone layer. It has become thinner. It has tore it in some cases. So that balance has been distorted. So what that balance also means is that it maintains temperature in certain areas. In Africa, for example, Nigeria, temperature is around 17 degrees to 22 degrees, right? But with all this, you see our temperature has increased, right? And by that increase in temperature, it might not impact on here because we don't have ice, but also in the colder region, when the temperature has increased, means that it's going to impact on the ice you have in those areas. And those ice will melt. And when they melt, they'll form more water. And the areas that have water, you have more water affecting those areas. And then you have floods into the area the water is not supposed to impact on. So those are the cycle effects. In the areas where you're supposed to have water held in the cloud, there's less water in the cloud, more water in the environment, the glaciers are melting, more water in the rivers, then the river banks are overflowing, and then you're having flooding. So that's the cycle. So if the ozone layer is damaged, you have more water, and then there'll be more flooding. That's the impact we're talking about. And also in the hotter regions like the African region, the protection we have on the ozone layer has been diminished. That means we'll be having higher temperature, burning our skin and all of that. So those are some of the impacts that climate change and the glaciers that you're asking in terms of temperature and then melting and causing flooding. I hope that helps.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. It actually, yes, it went a long way, sir. But sir, I want to also clarify this aspect. When we were talking about this carbon dioxide and water acidification, yeah, when I was reading something that I was reading a book actually regarding that, and I came across a part when it was explaining that the carbon dioxide, when it's released, and then there is no more forestation to take in those human natures, and it escapes to the atmosphere. This also brings in there's an acid, they call it one is it carbon acid or something? I can't remember actually. So it is when this acid then released to the sea, then it acidifies the sea and affects those animals in the sea. So please, how does this affect the human nature, like those people that are living on land?
Let me just take that very quickly. So the Earth is an ecosystem, right? By ecosystem, we mean that if there's an impact on one side, it affects the other side, right? There's supposed to be a balance in an ecosystem. If there's so much water, it will now evaporate to the cloud, and the cloud holds it for some time. It pours down and rains. So there's an ecosystem. If for any reason there's any distortion on the ecosystem, it impacts on the other part. So down to your question, right? Acidification of rivers, of seas, and all of that, you have articulated that very well. So if you talk about the carbon dioxide you talked about, and then with the rains, you have acid rains falling down, and then the rain ends up in the aquatic or marine life. That means the water we have become acidified. How does it impact on those of us in the land? That's the question you have asked, and that's very simple. The water, I want to use myself. I grew up in River State, and I stayed there almost all my life, but I'm in Lagos at the moment, right? In River State, everybody has a borehole in River State. You just sink the borehole 100 feet, 150 feet, or 200 feet, and then you have water. So the water you have in the sea, that's what is in the water bed. It's what they call water table, right? The water you have in the sea finds its way to the water table, which is under the water. So that acid water you're talking about enters the soil and then goes to that same layer that's still there. So when I dig my borehole, the layer where I normally find good water to drink, I no more find good water there now. is now acidic water. And when you take that water, you drink it, you find this salty taste you always have in it. So, which is the reason why those of us in Lagos will now have water treatment plants. We have bowls and we take the water out. We have to treat the water. Some of them are called iron water. Some of the water they come in brown. You have to treat them, take away the iron component from the water before it's good enough to drink. So water treatment has now become another element we have to spend money on, when initially, when there was no climate change, when there was no issue of carbonization or acidifying the water, those elements were not there. So it's an increased maintenance cost of our boreholes, increasing the cost of water that we can have normally to drink. So those are extra costs we have had because of our negative impact, negative habits from the energy industry is impacting the ecosystem, and we have to spend more money to stay alive rather than enjoy the gift of nature that God has given to us. So that is how I'm going to put it. I don't know if my co-mentor has any other thing to add to that. Thank you.
Thank you. No, I'm fine. I think you've done fantastic justice to it. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Saz, for answering those questions. I want to still put the chance to ask questions. Are there still more questions that our mentees would like to ask? Okay, I can see Esther raising her hand. Please, Esther, you can go ahead and ask your question.
Okay, thank you, sir. Can you hear me?
Yes, you are audible.
Okay, so I want to ask, since it would be a very, very good thing to embrace the use of renewable energy, and we already know that renewable energy or using renewable energy can be very expensive compared to the use of fossil fuel energy. So I want to ask, as someone that is looking to be an advocate for the use of renewable energy in Nigeria, but then it is very expensive. I don't know. My question is just that: do you think it would be a fruitless endeavor for young persons or students like me to try to advocate for renewable energy, the use of renewable energy in Nigeria, or I should not just try to do it at all? Because I'm just looking at it, if it's something that would go a long way. Because I mean, that's one of the reasons why I'm here, to make sure that, okay, well, I'm looking at a better way for us to use energy. I don't know if you get my question.
So, okay, we would like to direct the questions to our mentors. Mr. Alexandra, I would like to have you first, if you have anything to share on the question she asked.
Okay, so Esther, thank you for that question. Your question is, if I get it correctly, you're trying to see if it is worthwhile or it makes sense to advocate for the utilization of renewable energy. So my answer is yes. Every product has its customer, and renewable energy can be applied or can be adopted across different spectrums. If you recall the presentation by Gina mentioned some things about remote areas and rural areas, right? So renewable energy is fantastic. Yes, it has its good sides, it has its downsides. But you see, in Africa, the problem is energy access. We have less than 50% energy access. So for some people, they just want to have light, right? They just want to have access to electricity, they just want to have access to energy. So one of the things I'll tell you is that in rural communities, do you know that there are some communities that have been in this country and have never seen electricity? I've been to one in those states. They have never had electricity in the past 16 years. Just last month, there was a news that a community that has never had electricity in 91 years got grid power for the first time. So there are many communities like that. So you are in the city center and in your school, you have lights, you have generator, but there are many people that do not have that. So renewable energy is a solution to those kind of people, and it can be applied through different means. We have solar home systems, like this MTN Lumos. It's just similar to the one that you put rooftop solar, right? We also have mini grids, which can be interconnected or isolated mini. So an interconnected mini grid is one that is connected to the disco. That is your conventional discos, Abuja disco, Lagos disco, Eko disco, Jos, Kaduna, all the likes. But an isolated mini grid is one that is taken to a very, very far area that does not have access to electricity and is cut off. So you see, these are some of the conversations I was expecting to be in the presentation of Group 1, right? Applications of renewable energy in Nigeria. That was missing just that. So it's not, back to your question, it's not a futile event, it's not a futile effort. There are lots of renewable energy companies in the country. Some are doing biogas, some are doing solar. Most are doing solar anyways. And there are other areas. Some want to do hydro, small hydro. So it's not a futile effort. It's just that just know your target audience. Then also, what type of renewable energy are you advertising? Are you advocating for? Solar has a large followership. A lot of people know solar, and it is tested. They can see it. That is what's working. You can't come and say you want to do what type of, let's say, tidal, or there are some others that are new technologies and we've not really seen. Wind too is gradually being accepted. I know there's a study that has been done by Orlando, and some other people also finance wind. Even I've seen some houses that even have wind turbines for generating electricity. So it's not a futile effort. It's something you can do. Just know, I don't know if you're a lawyer, or I don't know your field of study. So I'll just speak generally. So in renewable energy, there are different aspects. There's finance, there's the law, there are different areas of renewable energy. If you want to go to finance, you want to go into advocacy, there are different areas. So you just choose the one you want to go into and stick to it. And yeah, so but fundamentally, it's something that is worthwhile. Thank you very much. I hope I'll be able to answer your question.
Thank you very much, sir. We would also like to have Mr. Okegene if he has any contribution as to that question, sir.
Thank you, Dennis. Sorry, what's the name of the person that asked the question again? I was trying to look out for it.
Esther. Her name is Esther, sir.
Okay. Esther, what is her field? Is she a lawyer, or what is your field, Esther?
I'm a law student, sir.
Okay, excellent. So activism in energy is a very, very viable cause, I must tell you. And like my co-mentor has also mentioned, these are some of the very key elements we expected in the renewable energy presentation that should have showed. One of the key things also that did not appear is off-grid electricity provision, which he also touched about for areas that are remote locations where you don't have energy currently, you don't have the transmission. Because we mentioned that in the energy industry, we have energy production, energy transmission, and energy distribution here. So because none of all these three parts are available in those rural areas, you don't have power. But the quick win for those areas are the off-grid solution. Off-grid will mean they are not within the network of production, transmission, and distribution, right? They are just on their own standalone. So you can put a solar panel on your roof if you are comfortable in those areas. But if you're in the rural area like he has mentioned, you just need something small to generate, energy. And for advocacy, for those of you that are involved, because your profession as a lawyer gives you the opportunity to have a voice, to talk, to speak, to impact. And it's a very lucrative business, if you ask me, because agencies around the entire world, World Health Organization, a lot of agencies, they are looking for this kind of advocates to tell them what is happening in remote areas. And if you're able to take your message, you write to the United Nations and say, we have 200 communities in Nigeria that don't have lights, and we need 5 billion to do this, and we're a credible company. If you give us this resource, we'll ensure that these people have lights. That is it for you. You will now begin to work on your passion. As a lawyer, you are now able to use your trade to pass this message. Yeah, someone is saying, especially for women, yes, people will listen to you more as a woman because you are the carrier of the family. Not just a man, but a woman that is being impacted at home. You cannot grind your fufu, you cannot grind your dish, you're not able to feed your children, you're not able to help the community, and you are crying out to say, I can do this. I can help these 50 communities if I have these solar panels and you bring these technicians. I can direct them to where they have to improve the quality of life. You understand? So some of us are also in those areas also. If you want to advocate for it, you can reach out to me on LinkedIn as well. We can see how we can support you also. I also have an energy company that is also within all this. So I think you can play a very huge role in all this, writing technical paper, writing thesis, writing application, writing for grants to say this is how we are. And we also need people to go into the rural area to get primary data. We want to know what's happening like in areas when they don't have, we want to know how much their life is being made difficult by the non-availability of energy. Then we'll quantify that already. There are a lot of agencies around the entire world that want to support energy initiatives and also provide energy sources like we talked about already. So that part is called energy advocacy. And I think you can go online and look for it. There's one lady, I can't remember, one small lady, Halal or something in the Middle East or so. That's what she does. She's an environmental advocate. And she's known worldwide, one of the youngest people that was in Guinness Book of Records or so, because she pushed in the frontier in the face of drought, in the face of an earthquake. She was fighting for people to have access to electricity, if you think. And she was given a Nobel Prize. I can't remember what she was given again for energy advocacy. Right. So Esther or Joe, I expect you to be one of the next energy advocates. We are here to support you. Add me on LinkedIn. We have some products. We have a few things that we can advise you on and see how you can get up there if that's what's appealing to you. Also in your class, also in your lecturing, in your thesis you are writing, write on those areas, begin to show your interest in those areas, tell your lecturers about it, that this area, and they'll provide as much resource. But the internet is your friend already. Internet can teach you and help you very quickly on how you can get to the climax of your career being an energy advocate. That will be my contribution. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir, for that contribution. While we're waiting for others to also share their contributions, we'll just take the following questions that were asked by the mentees after they submitted their presentation. And the first question is, how can we address the intermittency and storage challenges of renewable energy sources like wind and solar? We'd like to direct this first to Mr. Alexander, and then if Mr. Okeogene also has anything to add, he can add on it. Sir, can you help us with the first question, sir?
So it is their nature. It cannot be addressed. You can only just. It's the nature. Can you control the sunlight or tell the sun not to set in the evening? You can't do that, right? So, but the thing is that right now, more efficient renewable energy technologies are in the market that can generate more with less energy. So yeah, that might just be the, but it's not like there's a solution to it. I mean, it's just the nature of this. That is one of the limitations of these technologies. They are not like the conventional. It's like gas now. Gas, if there's gas, there's gas. But for renewable energy, you cannot tell when the wind is going to blow. You can't tell when the sun is going to shine. Or if rain wants to fall, are you going to tell the rain not to fall just because you want to generate electricity? So it's not like it can be eradicated. It's just that new technologies are out there to take care of some of this, as well as even storage. So every day I know there are lots of billions that are spent on R&D, research and development for renewable energy, and that is why one of the presenters, I think it was Gina, that mentioned that now renewable energy is getting cheaper. Yes, that is true. Before now, even the tariffs for tariff from electricity from RE. When I say RE, I mean renewable energy. One of the tariffs for RE was very, very expensive, but now it's even cheaper because of new technologies that exist to the market. So yeah, let me stop there. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. Mr. Okoyogene, do you have any contribution to the question, sir?
Okay. Yes, thank you. Thank you very much for that question. I have a slightly different opinion about renewable energy, maybe because I've spent a bit more time to narrow down on that. I just newly started a company on renewable energy, electrification, and mobility, and generally how to expand on energy. I've been on the conventional energy for too long, and I felt that there are limitations that conventional energy is not able to harness, and one of them has to do with energy storage, right? So this is the reason why we have batteries. Batteries used for energy storage. So we use non-renewable energy, or we use renewable energy at the time where they are available. Typical example, during the day, we use solar panels. And when we have excess supply of that, we put it in a battery for the time where you don't have them, right? So if you check in the world now, one of the greatest technology where people are paying attention to is battery energy. And this is the reason. So they can come into play at the time where energy is not available. So if we go to the example that we know of gas or gas turbine and every other fossil fuel, immediately you put the fuel into the engine, it can work all through 24 hours, right? We can walk through, but they have that issue of carbon emission. So if we are using renewable energy and say, okay, we want to be 100% compliant or 50% by 2030, or whatever the case is that we've looked at. During the day, I use my typical example where I am now at home. I have a solar panel, we have batteries. During the daytime, we're using directly from energy. We're using directly from daylight, we're using directly from the sun. Then the excess energy out of what we're not using goes into a battery. So battery storage has become the new gold, right? It's the new AI tool, because if we can increase the capacity of the battery, I don't mean increase the size of the battery, no, increase the storage capacity, energy density accumulation in the battery, and then you have solved the problem. So if I can store the energy I can use in my house for running my ACs and all that, I can store it into a small battery that can carry it for 12 hours. And then I don't need the grid supply, because during the day I use my solar panel, and during the night I use the power from the battery. So energy storage has become the new gold. That is the only way forward for us to have, and battery technology has gone so far. So I was told that Elon Musk has recently launched a new 360 battery technology and solar panel in the US, where they have hybrid solar panels on your roof. They have hybrid solar solution in terms of your internet. They have hybrid solar batteries that store energy. So those batteries, you can use air conditioning, you can use energy as much as you can, and they can store the battery during the period where you don't have energy, and they give you that night light, that period, they give you the power you need, and then before the morning time when you have energy already. And those are the kind of beautiful solutions why we have gone into renewable energy. We want to bring those kind of energy to Nigeria. And that's why we're talking to people like Esther or Joe that want to come and advocate for these technologies, these things that are possible to be done. Here on our own side, we don't do a lot of research, R&D. That's why some of these things we don't know about them, but we should. Energy companies in Nigeria should spend time to do research. Companies, the likes of energy production companies, should spend their time doing, how do we store the excess energy? Because one of the things we observe a lot of waste. The sun we have here is wasting. We are not storing it, we are not keeping it, we are not using it. And that's a waste. So in the energy efficient era that we are going into the next few days, every energy that stands out there, we want to collect it, we want to store it, we want to keep it for future use. And these are some of the things that energy companies in China and the US, they are already doing. So they have what they call off-grid solution, they have a grid solution. So if you're using grid solution let me paint a picture in terms of energy costs. So if you look at energy costs during the daytime, and Alexander can talk more to this, right? During the daytime where everybody's using energy, where there's mass use of energy, energy cost is higher. while during the night where the industries are closed, energy cost is lower. So the wisdom that we have is that at that peak time where there is high energy use, and energy infrastructure can break down because a lot of people are using it. But if you have off-grid solution, at that time, you are not using the energy, you are storing, you're using your stored energy. And at the time when the energy cost goes down, you can now go into using those energy because the price has dropped to what you can afford. So it's only in the night time you use the grid supply because it comes to maybe 1 naira or 2 naira or 20 naira that you can afford. But during the daytime, that is 100 naira, you use your renewable source. By that doing already, because I'm also into the energy management space, those are some of the strategies we have already in managing energy. But again, back to the key of the question, energy storage, the answer is batteries. Also, there are also other technologies that we're also looking at, capacitors, use of inductors, use of the several other technologies we're looking at, where we can take our energy capacitors, store the energy there, and then when we need them, we press a button, the energy comes back for us to reuse. I hope that answers your question. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much, sir, for that answer. We'll just be going straight to the second question. The second question is, what policies and incentives can governments implement to promote the adoption of renewable energy? Okay, Mr. Alexander, if you can you help us with that question first? So.
Okay, Dennis.
Yes,
Thank
sir.
you. Okay, so what policies and incentives can government implement to promote adoption? So to answer this question, let us start with the challenges. We have to start with the challenges before we can talk about incentives. So the challenges of renewable energy adoption in Nigeria, firstly, we have the fact that many people are not sensitized. They don't know about it. They don't trust it. We just talked about intermittency issues. So this is one of the factors, right? Sensitization. And many people are not aware. I went to conducting a study for my PhD. I went to a community in Oyo State, and they said they did not want solar, that they wanted grid. So that is one of the factors. Second factor, if you remember the presentation from Gina, or sorry, not Gina now, presentation from Group 1, we talked about the high cost of renewable energy. So it's expensive. That is one of the other factors as well. So renewable energy has lots of constraints. It's expensive. It has limitations. There are a lot of things that contribute to the high cost, the importation, waivers, and the likes, right? So policies and incentives, the government can do stuff like fiscal and monetary incentives, eradicate or waive tax, create an enabling environment, give, right now they're already giving tax holidays for renewable energy companies that do some sort of investments in rural communities. Also provide funding. So REA, that's why the Group 1 had a very fantastic opportunity, right, to educate us, but I don't know, they were probably carried away. So the REA is doing a lot of work in promoting renewable energy across the country. They provide grants. Under the REA, there's what we call the REF, Rural Education Fund, which used to be headed by Dr. Sanusi or Hiari, but now it's headed by another person. So they provide some sort of funding. Even under the REA, there's what we call the NEF, Nigerian Energy Program, which also is World Bank funded. And AFDB, African Development Bank funded as well. So I think the World Bank gave $350 million to the IRA. AFDB also provided about $200 million just for the provision of renewable energy to rural communities and the likes, right? So more funding, enabling environment. Since you said government, it just has to be grants. Then also companies like organized company now can have some sort of access to some of these benefits to encourage them. Because on the face of it, provision of renewable energy to rural communities is not so viable. It doesn't really make economic sense without grants. So it is when you have grants that are being provided, that is when you can now say, okay, to some extent, there is a reason to go into it. So what I can do, I have a little write-up on this incentives. So I can share with the management of JIIPCC, maybe sometime later this week. If I get a reminder, just like a prompt, an email prompt, I can just package it and send, then Dennis or whoever it is can share with the class or with the group. So I'll stop here. Thank you.
All right, sir. That will be. Thank you so much for that initiative. We'll do well to reach out to you to remind you for that, sir. So can we have Mr. Kiogene also give his contribution concerning the question?
All right, Dennis, thank you. And thanks for the question again you read out. I think that's a very important question. How do we incentivize? Because anything that you have incentive for, you have a like for people to adopt that a bit more. So for renewable energy, I think the adoption is a bit slow because people don't have that understanding. The advocacy is very, very poor, and that's where the likes of Esther Ojo comes in again for advocacy, for people can understand that the energy you're going to get from the off-grid or from the solar is the same energy you're going to get from the grid connection, right? So I laughed when my co-mentor talked about his research he's carrying out, and he went to some communities. He found out that people don't want off-grid solutions, renewable solutions, and they want this. So that lack of understanding is there. So that's where advocacy comes. So those of you that are in the advocacy space, or you really want to do something about that, please try to reach out to me already on LinkedIn. You have my name, my last name is there. Reach out to me and we'll see how we can also put you in line of that you can advocate. We have a lot of products within the renewable energy space that we can help to advocate, and then we'll put you in line. And I mean, before you are graduating already, you already have a line of path of where you want to go. So in terms of this also, one of the things that can be done, especially outside the private sector or within the private sector, in the US, one of the things we see is that there are companies that are giving free solar panels, free connections. They put it for you, they connect it for you so that you understand their product, you understand how it works. So these are some of the incentives, again, that people are giving so that there's a handshake, there's an adoption of this new technology. So some people are paying the price for the technology to be understood. We understand how the non-conventional works, but we don't understand how the conventional works. So if a company has gone out of their way to bring these solar panels, they integrate it for you and you are able to manage it within your home. So these are some of the incentives that we need to look at in this part of the world. But one of the challenges we have is that we're not able to provide these solar panels or this alternative energy. We're not able to provide them in country and manufacture them to the scale that the prices can drop down to nothing. So that is why we require young Nigerians, researchers, and all the people that are thinking, the young generation, so they can think out multiple solutions for the energy industry. There was also one alternative we saw recently that they say tree, when you put a bulb on a tree, it produces the energy and all of that. If that was really true, I mean, we don't have a problem already. We just plant trees everywhere in our houses and we're able to tap that energy and use it. We don't need wires running out everywhere. And that's on a lighter note. But again, energy requirement is unending. In fact, energy demand is increasing. I think that's one of the things we're going to talk about maybe in the next class or the next one, energy demand and the energy crisis, right? So it is quite important because population is increasing, demanding, people are buying phones, they want to charge them, people want to have 24 hours. So there's higher demand of energy. So conventional energy is not able to provide for that. So the unconventional energy advocacy and for people to understand that they are both the same thing, they provide energy. I think that space is very, very important. And then the incentives you talked about, it is very, very important that we encourage people, you know, to use this alternative energy, either in the way of reducing the prices or giving them tax cuts or giving them several other things that we feel there are benefits that will allow for the quick adoption of alternative energy, especially in rural areas and areas where the grid did not get to. That will be my contribution. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, sir. Going to the last question is, how can renewable energy technologies be adapted for use in developing countries with limited resources? How can renewable energy technologies be adapted for use in developing countries with limited resources? Mr. Alexander, can we have your contribution on this question, sir?
Thank you, Dennis. How can renewable energy technology be adapted for use in developing countries with limited resources? Let me allow my co-mentor to answer this question. Okay, please come on.
Okay, thank you so much. I'm just reading, how can renewable energy technology be adapted to use in developing countries with limited resources? So again, we must understand that where there's a challenge, where there's difficulty, there's an opportunity, right? We are the ones that are suffering here on this side, suffering the issue of non-availability of power. And that means the solution that we require for renewable energy is also in our hands. So the question you're asking, how can renewable energy technology be adapted? First of all, is to understand how it works, is to understand how renewable energy works. I would have shared a movie. I would have shared a movie. I can't remember the title now. It happened in one of these African countries where they were farming. A father or a community was farming, and then there was drought in that community. And what has happened is that because there was drought, there was no water. The irrigation source they had before, there was no water for the community to use, and all their plants and the crops were dying. There was a little boy of a new generation, just as the way you have asked a question, that got reading in school. He saw renewable energy sources. He saw that it's possible to generate power from dynamos, from turning things, so things that are a dynamic motion, you know, a rotary motion rather. And so he began to think in his head, how do I get you know, devices that can be used in this light? So he began to do his research. He went to the library to study. He now found that bicycle is one of the sources which you can provide that rotary energy. And he now went to his father to tell his father, if you catch the bicycle, you know, this our sumo pump that is not working, this light that is not working, I might be able to do something. If you see the slap that the father gave to the boy, the slap was very hot. This bicycle that I have, that I normally try to move from place to place, is what you want. You know, it caused a lot of issues in the house. The father beat the boy up and told him a lot of things. And the boy insisted. Weeks after weeks, they were becoming hungry. They didn't have any food to eat. The boy had to go to other people, to his teacher, to the community head, to talk to his father. And eventually, the father agreed. They had to break that bicycle into two. They used the chain link and all the other things, and they provided energy. And that they hung it high. I'll look for the name of that movie, right, and share with Dennis. They now hung that their power generation somewhere up, and they were now riding the bicycle. As they were riding the bicycle, power was generated, and then water was generated, and they could, and they were able to, you know, provide irrigation for their farming. So this is renewable energy at work, right? So we are the ones that are having the pinch. We need to look for the solutions. We need to study hard. We need to look at the adaptability. We need to look at, as developing countries, we have limited resources, yes, but that limitation becomes the opportunity that we need to use. That limitation becomes a driving force, right? I was listening to a TED talk that was yesterday, a few days ago, that by Seth, I think Seth Morgan was the man's name again. He was talking about his $1 million idea that did not produce for him. He had an idea of having an internet That was the early days of his internet days. How? Because he was working for United Nations, he had access to internet. He wanted to do some very, very good work for sending emails and all that, a few things. In the early days of the internet, yes, the boy who harnessed the wind. Excellent. Excellent. Thank you very much, Harmony Jack. Thank you for that. So the boy who harnessed the wind, please go and watch that again. It will inspire you that in spite of deficiency, in spite of the fact that we are labeled from developing countries, we have more opportunities. We have more opportunities. So I'm writing an article on Lagos, the new London, right? Lagos, the new London. So that article is on, again, on deficient area, we in developing country, how we have the opportunity to take over from the developing world. So let us not look down on ourselves because we are developing and we have limited resources. That limited opportunity, it gives us the opportunity to think, right? So back to the story I was talking about, this Seth Morgan already, where he talked about. So he was looking to provide a solution. He said he had all the money, he had all the internet, he created his own solution, but the solution did not work. On the back end, there were some boys also in the UK that were US that were very hungry under their, you know how they always say it, in their garage, trying to create a solution. So the solution in which he created, he wrote a book, and the book sold 1,600 copies, and the book was a total flop, according to him. But on the back end, those other guys that were from limited location, they did not have the money, but they had the drive, they had the grit, they had the energy, they spent more time to study and think. They were the ones that developed Yahoo. I don't know if you know Yahoo Mail. Those guys were the ones that were able to successfully develop from nothing because they were restricted, because they were underdeveloped, because they had limited resources. It provided the energy they required. So in terms of our local energy requirement, I heard my co-mentor mention hydro, small hydro. There was one time I did a research on that. I was amazed on what small hydro was. You know, hydroelectricity is the type where water is used to generate power. That is on a large scale. But small hydro, you know, they've miniaturized it to a small place where even if you have a bucket of water that you can look for a way or a sumo pump to turn it around and pour it, and it can create rotary motion, you can actually create electricity. So we need to be creative. We must not fold our hands and wait for United Nations. I did mention that before, that there were a lot of grants. Yes, those grants are there, fair enough, yes. But if we have the tenacity, if we have the ideas, and then we have created what we call the MVP, most viable product, minimum viable product, when we have that, we can now ask for more resources to blow out what we have done to develop those solutions. I tell you, the best solution anybody can create for any economy is localized solution. And that's one of the things that Africa can do. The solutions that are coming from the Western world to our own use here, they are not the best, they are not helping us. And one of the examples of that is democracy. The democracy that Europe has created for themselves that is working for them. If you are following the politics of Africa, democracy is not working for us already. And there's an advocacy by Africa to provide our own governance system that works for the Africans. So in the like same mind, we need to develop our own technologies that work for us with the resources we have, with the sand we have, with the grass we have, with the things we have. What can we create that work? We must not wait for solar panels that they will build in Europe and they have lights to develop. No, we don't have that. Can we create something that can provide electricity? I will end with this. A few months ago in DRC, I don't know if any of you know DRC. I'm well familiar with Africa because I did an MBA in Kigali, right? And all my classmates, I had classmates from 125 African countries. So it gives me the opportunity to travel to African countries and know what is going on. So DRC is the Democratic Republic of Congo, and it's known as one of the richest countries in terms of natural resource. And in DRC, they found a metal in the ground when they did, because mining is a big deal there. When they mined the ground and they opened it, they found one metal that if you have that metal and you just put a bulb on it, energy, because the bulb lights up, right? So there's energy infused in that material. And that's our local kind of energy. So we need to look about solutions that are African solutions that work for us. That is the only way we can create renewable technology that can work for the African continent. That will be my contribution. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Okeogene, for that contribution, that wonderful contribution. I can see Temi Lola raising her hand also with Esther Ojo, but we'll take it first from Temi Lola. You can go ahead and ask your question, then we'll go. Okay, Temi Lola, you can ask your question.
Thank you. My question is also on renewable energy. I would like to know how individuals and community can engage in energy advocacy to promote clean and renewable energy sources.
I think we've answered that question already. Somebody has asked that question already. So maybe she wants to go back and look into the video. We've talked about advocacy already. That was what Esther Ojo talked about. A few people have talked about it again. And I think my co-mentor has taken his time to talk about it and as well myself. So advocacy can happen at different levels, and we're available to provide more guide on that. So we don't keep repeating ourselves. But again, there are blueprints also online. You can study. What I can say to that is that advocacy is a very big business. When you have done your research and you understand the particular industry of the renewable energy and the niche and what is required, you can advocate for it. I talked about Malala already. I talked about her. She's an advocate for an energy advocate or for environment already. So she's well known. She has more than 10 million viewers on Twitter and co because she's an advocate. So there's a lot that can come with advocacy, and I really encourage you Tomilola. That advocacy is something that we need to look at, especially as lawyers. It works for you already because you have the opportunity to express yourself to the entire world on what your views are as regards that energy source. And then people will listen to you. You provide solutions, and then people are ready to support you, especially when it has to do with localized solutions that are good for your local community. People are ready to support you. That's what I would say at this point. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. Mohammed Musa, we can see your hand up. Please, you can go ahead and ask your question.
All right,
Okay.
Thank you so much once again for this another opportunity to ask a question. Yes, sir. I've actually got all the discussion so interested, but what my concern is actually on the sustainability of this renewable energy that we're talking about, sir. You will agree with me, sir, that all these industries we've been trying to adapt ourselves with or to introduce in order to solve most of our problems and our challenges also has one or two challenges, sir. So apply to this renewable energy. And from my own understanding of this renewable energy, I see sustainability as one of its challenges. So, sir, is there any feasible let me just put it as resiliency? Is there any feasible solutions that maybe the world are trying to work towards in order to attack or tackle this this issue of sustainability? Because I can see that most of these solar powers and all those things, they have a limited period of time they could like put on transmitting energy to people. So, sir, is there any research or any effort put in place to see that the sustainability of the renewable energy we're talking about keeps on? And is it even reliable also, sir?
Okay, thank you for that question, Mohammed. Let's go over to Mr. Alexander. Sir, Mr. Alexander, do you have any contribution on this question? Is it possible what are the means by which we can improve or increase sustainability of renewable energy?
Okay, so let me just go first and allow, Michael to contribute as well. You can't say renewable energy is not sustainable. You can't say that because if it were not sustainable, more people will not be doing or deploying renewable energy technologies across the country. So you can't say that. Yes, you can say, but the thing is, yes, there are some levels of issues that have been experienced, right? But you see, when it comes to sustainability, you're talking about it's staying or standing the test of time. The life cycle of a solar panel is about 20 years. So what you're seeing is how can the solar panels last as long as 20 years? One of the challenges that we experience in the country is the fact that First of all, the solar panels are imported. All the components are imported. The batteries, inverter, charge controllers, panels, everything is imported, right? And solar technology did not start spreading across the country about the last decade or two. So there are still some power in terms of training, in terms of skilled hands in the market install the solar. And you see, that's why you see this is one of the challenges, right, of solar. I use solar specifically because many people, they've heard that it's not reliable, it's not sustainable. That's your question. And the fault is because they probably got mushroom technicians to install those assets, mushroom technicians to make those solar installations. So that's why you do it. And you see, there's an art to this. You need somebody to design, appropriately design the solution that works well for you. How many batteries? What is the size of the inverter? Is it a what was the size? The type of wires that are even going to be used? Is it 2 mm? Is it 5 mm? Is it 10 mm? The battery, is it 12 volts, 24 volts, and the likes, right? So are you going to connect this solar installation in parallel or in series? These are the calculations that go into designing a solar system, whether for home system or a mini grid. Well, so for some people, they just do anything. Again, some people want to cut costs. They are not willing to pay the full price. So that makes the technician just do shamble work for them just because they want to also make a profit. So back to your question, how can it be sustainable? I know for a fact that, you see, now, group one, I don't know why I keep on talking about group one. Where is Gina? Gina has left. You see, the stakeholders in renewable energy, there's the REA, there's NEC, there's another body called NEMSA. NEMSA is in charge of technical standards. There's also the SON, Standard Organization of Nigeria. But NEMSA ensures the technical standards of this investment, of this, of these appliances. If NEMSA is doing their job and all these appliances, the batteries, everything meets technical standards, why is it not going to be sustainable? It will definitely be sustainable. So I will allow my co-mentor to continue from here. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. Mr. Okeogene, do you have anything to add as to the sustainability of renewable energy, sir? The question on sustainability.
Okay, thank you very much. I think sustainability is a very big issue we need to look into. I quite agree that there's an issue with sustainability of renewable energy. And what does that mean? On a broad sense, let me just define sustainability by what's being said on the internet. Saying in the broad sense, sustainability refers to the ability to maintain or support a process continuously over time. So the idea is to maintain or support a process continuously over time. And when you say renewable is not sustainable, means that you cannot have renewable over time continuously. And I'm inclined to somehow agree with the question that is being asked, and that renewable, the capability of renewable energy needs to be expanded and stretched a bit more. And that was one of the questions we asked also earlier. When renewable, because they are intermittent, there are other times when they are not available. How do we make renewable energy available all the time? I think that's the question that Mohammed was asking. And one of the things the research has been on is the use of batteries, like I mentioned before, storage systems, where you take the energy from when it's available, keep it for the time when it's not available, right? So this is one of the downside of renewable. It's one of the biggest challenges renewable answer, and that is why there's continuous research that's currently going on. My co-mentor mentioned he's currently doing research for his PhD also in this aspect of how do we sustain, how do we have 24 hours power from renewable? And this can only happen if we can stretch our research, if we can stretch our investigations to see how these energies can happen. Don't forget, in some areas of the world, wind is always available in those areas. So the wind energy can provide sustainable energy in some places, but it cannot provide in others. Same as also sunlight. Sunlight is available in this part of the world, but in some other climates, you don't have sunlight. So renewable energy can be a bit more sustainable here because you have power most of the time, not on the night though, but you can capture it and store. So this continues to be a systemic issue, and research and development is the only thing that we require. Like I mentioned, Elon Musk has already provided some solution in that, in having sustainable energy, where in terms of having 24 hours power, but this has not become common knowledge around the entire stretch, entire the value chain. So we need to start having more companies have that research, and then in terms of scalability, we scale it in a way that the price drops to almost zero, and then we're able to have that at par when renewable energy and conventional energy are almost at the same cost. So it's still up for research, and this will take some time. This is why when we talk about energy parity talks about what is the value, what is the cost for energy. The cost for conventional energy is cheaper than the cost for non-conventional energy, because we've not been able to scale. We've not been able to make non-conventional energy. We've not been able to make it affordable. The cost is still high. If you want to go and buy solar panel, they'll tell you 1.5 million, 2 million. That money can give you light for almost 1 year if you pay an NEPA bill, right? But just because it's not available. So that issue of sustainability is there. It's not something we can solve today. It takes time. It requires you to do your research. It requires you to provide solutions. It requires us to think together. And it requires a lot of resource to make renewable energy components more available and sources for us to trap those energy and store them for the time when the energy will not be available. And that will be my contribution. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Thank you, sir. We want to thank both our mentors for doing due justice to the questions that were asked. This obviously, they have vast knowledge in this subject matter, and you can just see the amount of years of research and still ongoing research they have put into their work. And I also want to encourage us, the mentees, to also in your own research, in your own work, in your own assignments, as you move further in the direction of the energy industry, you should put in much more efforts to make researches so that you can profile more solutions to the energy crisis that we face, whether it be renewable, a renewable source of energy, or we want to go more conventional in our energy source. We are almost done with today's section. I would just like us to just take our picture section very quick, and so that we can call it a day. So if you are available, can you just turn on your camera so that we can take the picture? Okay, can we have more mentees turn on their videos so that we can have like more faces on the pictures, on the video, on the screenshots? All right, thank you. Thank you for that. With that, we've come to the end of today's section. Okay, with that, we've come to the end of today's section. We look forward to see you guys in the next class. Any other question or complaints you may have, you can direct it to the WhatsApp group. and then we'll look for a way to sort them and solve them. So thank you again to our mentors, Mr. Okeogene and Mr. Alexander. Thank you for sparing out 2 hours plus of your time to be here. It was wonderful learning from our mentors. We learned a lot, including me, myself. We look forward to having you in our next classes. And thank you once again, and please do all enjoy the rest of your day.